Today on The Big Story, China and Taiwan exchange criticism with each other after Taiwan says it is already an independent country. A Singaporean on the run for over 30 years for being a suspect in a murder caught in Australia. Show us the money, Jewel Changi Airport draws in the crowds, but retailers say sales are slow. We are into the middle of the week. You're watching The Big Story, where we will discuss the hottest topics of the day and explain why they matter. I'm Haryanto Diman, coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. China and Taiwan exchanged words today, strongly criticizing each other. In her first interview since her landslide re-election last weekend, Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen said her country was already an independent country and that China should review its policy towards it. And a tit-for-tat response, a spokesman for China's Taiwan Affairs Office insisted that Taiwan and China are one single Chinese nation and will not review its one China policy. President Tsai told the BBC that Taiwan need not declare independence as it is already a successful democracy with a good economy. But China shot back to say that even though Taiwan's political systems are different, it is not an obstacle to unification or an excuse for Taiwan's de facto independence. Now to share more on this, we have Global Affairs correspondent Goh Swee Noi, who is live on Skype with us all the way in Taipei. Hi Swee Noi.
Hi, Haryanto.
Hi, Swee Noi. Swee Noi, if we could start off, why did President Tsai speak up so strongly against China in her first interview after winning re-election, saying things like Taiwan was already an independent country and that China needs to show Taiwan respect? Such statements would surely infuriate Beijing, no?
Oh, yes, it would. But on the other hand, if you look at how she won the election, she won by a landslide based on a campaign that stresses a strong stance against China's pressures against Taiwan. She fought on a platform of defending Taiwan's sovereignty and democracy. So it is expected that she would take such a strong stance against China so soon after her election. But if she wants to improve ties with the Chinese, she would need to scale down this rhetoric. So what she says on her inauguration on May 20th would actually be more indicative of the direction of her administration on the cross-strait ties.
Right. Now, could you quickly recap for us what Beijing's one China policy towards Taiwan is?
Right. China has always said that Taiwan is a part of China. It is a breakaway province that has to be reunified at some point in time by force if necessary. And this reunification, but it stresses peaceful reunification based on the formula of one country, two systems, which is now the model of Hong Kong. Yeah, but the Taiwanese in the main reject this one country, two systems formula because for them, it has not worked in Hong Kong. They've seen the erosion of Hong Kongers' civil liberties. They've seen a curtailing of their political freedoms in the sense that there's no universal suffrage in the semi-autonomous city. Right.
Now, Swee Noi, what is your interpretation of China's response to President Tsai's rebuke of Beijing's policy towards Taiwan today?
Yes, it is a pretty firm stance that China has taken towards Taiwan. It is to be expected, given Xi Jinping, that Chinese President Xi Jinping has taken quite a strong stance towards Taiwan since Tsai Ing-wen's becoming president way back in 2016. Yeah. So today you can see that it warned against separatist activities. It said that if cross-strait ties are damaged, the situation will be turbulent and that the interests and welfare of the Taiwanese will be hurt. But analysts have said that China will not take military action against Taiwan because, well, at least not at this point in time, because the costs will be high.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Suinoy, for coming onto the show to share more on this. Now, to read on the China-Taiwan's relations, you can check it out on our website, straitstimes.com. Now, moving on to our second segment, you can run, but you cannot hide. Singaporean Tam Kok Wah was on the run from police here for more than 30 years. He's suspected of being involved in a murder. He was hiding in Australia all this while until he was arrested recently for another crime there. Now 76 years old, Mr. Tham was sentenced to 6 years and 9 months in jail in New South Wales after he admitted to passport fraud and deception. He used a fake identity to get an Australian passport and pension benefits of about $97,000. When he was arrested, he admitted that his true identity was Tam Kok Wah, born in Singapore on October 7, 1943. He fled to Australia in 1986 when he was 43. Now we have senior law correspondent K.C. Vijayan in the studio to tell us more. Welcome, Vijay.
Thank you.
Now, Vijay, we know that Tam Kok Wah is a person of interest in a murder case and described as a wanted man in a 1989 SD report. How did Tam manage to escape to Australia and stay undetected all this while?
Well, he left Singapore in 1986 on a passport with a slightly different name and emerged again in 1991.
Right.
Where he apparently met, it's a bit of a mystery, those 5 years, how he survived, except that he went under the name of Henry Tam.
Right.
But he met somebody in a gambling house and whom he said offered him a citizenship certificate for about 3,000.
Okay.
Under the name of Roger Lee. Roger Lee is a Hong Konger.
Okay.
I mean, apparently that's it.
Yeah.
And then about a few months later, he changed that. He renounced the name of Roger Lee on that citizenship and assumed the name of Simon Manley. And he thrived under Simon Manley for quite a while in Australia, applying for passports, traveling under the name of Simon Manley, who's actually also given as a Hong Konger. Yeah.
Right, right.
Until in the course of his stay in Australia, he committed 2 offences. One of it was for helping in the supply of drugs, for which he was jailed for about 6 years.
Okay.
Yes, for supply of ecstasy.
Right.
It's amazing that he still maintained that identity of Simon Manley until subsequently he was Australian Federal Police did some tracking in relation to the passports that he used. He renewed his passport several times and he used travel, and he also based those documents to be eligible for benefits, social security benefits and so on.
And eventually he was caught because the police raided his home.
Yes, and they recovered some documents and so on.
Okay, and found that 2 passports as well.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And eventually that was when he
was
identified and he
confessed. He admitted, yes, that his actual name was, as what was stated in 1986, Tam
Kok Wah.
Yes, Tam Kok Wah.
And he was actually born Singaporean.
Yes, that's right.
Right.
Yes.
And because of that, of course, he has been sentenced to a 6
years jail term,
right, in Australia.
Yes.
Now the question is then, Vijay, can he be brought back to Singapore to assist in the murder case?
In a way, these are early days, but the judge did mention in passing that deportation may not be an issue. He didn't say the reasons why.
Right.
One can think that in Australia they do not deport wanted persons who may be subject to the death penalty in an overseas country. So that could be a factor. If I may take you back to about 2002, 2005, there was a precedent, case of Michael McCrea, where he was wanted for the murder of 2 persons in Singapore, known as the Orchard Towers murder.
Okay.
Subsequently, the authorities here gave an undertaking that he would not be subject to the death penalty. And then he was brought back, and I believe he's still serving his sentence. It's about 24 years jail term, I think.
Okay. Yeah. And for Tam, of course, he has just recently started, right?
Yes, he started in he was detained in 2018. So about a year, more than a year.
and of course with parole,
yes,
it's
yes.
about 4 years.
4
right, it
years,
was
about
mentioned.
2024, yeah, 24 around that. That's
Right, and of course, like what you mentioned, Vijay is
Sure.
still in its early
Early days,
days.
yes,
We're not quite sure what is
Eventual
what will
outcome.
eventually
Yes.
happen. Well, thank you so much, Vijay, for coming on to the show
Sure.
to share more on this. Now, to read more on the story, you can check it out on straitstimes.com. And now let's move on to What's Trending, where Dylan will share with us what's buzzing in the internet verse. Over to you, Dylan.
Thanks, Haranto. It's time for What's Trending. First up, in case you couldn't tell, with all the cheery music and red decor, Chinese New Year is just around the corner. One t-shirt design, however, has dampened the festivities for some and left people seeing red. The shirt was spotted at Fair Price Extra in Ang Mo Kio and had the character "show" printed on it. While the character means longevity, the term "shou-yi", loosely translated as longevity clothing, is used to dress the deceased at funerals. The shirt in question was part of a line of shirts meant to reference the three auspicious Chinese deities, Fu, Lu and Shou. NTUC FairPrice has since put what has been coined funeral shirts from its stores. Moving on, get excited Mario fans, you can now play your favorite game in real life. Universal Studios has officially announced the upcoming Super Nintendo World, which is set to open in time for the 2020 Summer Olympics in Tokyo. The theme park has been described as a life-size living video game. Here's a look at what's in store. The park will feature wearable power-up bands that will sync with a smartphone app and track digital activities while you walk around. Osaka will get the first Super Nintendo World, followed by other Universal parks in Hollywood, Orlando, as well as in Singapore. And speaking of Mario, this isn't a real-life game of Mario Kart, but look here, a handbag being tossed onto oncoming vehicles along the CTE. Motorists were stunned when a red handbag was thrown out of a car, which caused drivers to jam their brakes, but wasn't enough to prevent a 5-car collision. Witnesses say that an agitated young woman then exited the car and was heard scolding the female driver until the police arrived at the scene. They are believed to be a mother and daughter pair. Investigations are ongoing. I'm Dylan Ang, and that's all we have for What's Trending today. If you've seen a story you want to share, tell us on Straits Times' Facebook page.
Well, thanks, Dylan. I'll be excited to save Princess Peach. Now, if you're a fan of Nintendo, let us know in the comment section below as well. Now, moving on to our third segment, it quickly became one of Singapore's iconic landmarks and has drawn in tens of millions of visitors. But 9 months after the opening of Jewel Changi Airport, some retailers surprisingly say business is still slow. When the Straits Times visited Jewel recently, sales staff at 8 out of 17 shops surveyed said meeting sales targets has been challenging. But stores that offer unique concepts or are exclusively located at Jewel seem to be doing better than the ones who have multiple outlets in other parts of Singapore. Doing well though are the restaurants. Those on Jewel's level 5 said business has been strong for the past few months. We have journalist Melissa Heng to tell us more. Welcome, Mel.
Hi.
Now, Mel, you spoke to some of the retailers. What did they say exactly?
So basically, the retailers that I spoke to, quite a few of them were saying that although there are numbers coming in to visit Jewel, right? Not everyone necessarily is there to shop, right? So, for example, they go there to look at all the attractions, like all the things that Jewel's very much known for, the indoor waterfall, the canopy park, right? So people are going there to look at these things and to eat at the very well-known, attractive F&B places as well, places like Shake Shack and your Burger and Lobster.
Right.
So they're not necessarily going there for like shopping.
Right.
Yeah. So
I'm quite guilty of that because I go there for the vortex as well.
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Like you want to go and check out the vortex, take your pictures, you know.
Yeah. And then post a little selfie on Instagram. But having said that, Mel, are there shops doing well actually?
There are also, I mean, from speaking to the retailers again, I think it's more of the stores that do well are the ones that maybe only have one outlet.
Okay.
In the whole of Singapore, there's only one outlet at Jewel, or maybe the outlets have a bit more of a unique concept, right? These are the ones that I think then people will also specifically go there to go and check out these stores. So for example, we know that In Good Company, which is a local fashion brand, they have a store at Jewel that's quite big on the first level, so it's very accessible. And then they have partnered with Birds of Paradise, which is a local gelato store that's also quite popular. So they said that they are getting quite a lot of footfall in their stores because people also want to go, look at like what they have there, and then people like that there's ice cream too.
Right. I mean, I would imagine the Pokemon Center as well will be quite a draw because it's the first and only one outside of Japan, right?
Exactly. So it's the concept like that there's only that one store there. Then of course people will go and check that out, right?
Because no other choices.
Yeah, exactly.
There's the only one. What are some of the possible contributing factors then, to the business slowing down there?
So if the stores that are unique to Jewel are doing probably slightly better, then the ones that have outlets in a lot of other areas in Singapore, right? You're talking about like your fashion chains and maybe the service chains even. These are the ones that I think are maybe struggling. So some of the retailers that I talked to, for example, said that they're not really meeting their sales targets, and the ones that have stores, for example, along Orchard Road or in the Heartland malls, they say those stores are doing better than the ones at Jewel. So it's like these stores are more accessible to to large number of Singaporeans rather than going like all the way to Jewel.
Right. And I would imagine because Jewel is also quite big as well.
Yeah, exactly. So it is really big. There's like 10 levels altogether, or almost 300 shops, I think, at an F&B. So it can be a bit, can take time to go and look at everything, and then like we were saying just now, if you go there, you want to spend some time eating, you want to spend some time looking at the vortex, right? After that, I think you only have maybe a little bit of time to shop. So you would stick around like the more accessible levels, like level 1 and 2, and then I don't know if people have that much time after that to explore anything else already.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Mel, for coming on to the show to tell us more about this. For more on Mel's story, you can check it out on our Straits Times website. There we have it, our top stories for today. For more news and videos, log on to straitstimes.com. Once again, I'm Haryanto. See you tomorrow for more stories on The Big Story.